The Battle of Gettysburg was a turning point of the American Civil War, halting the Confederates' second invasion of the North and inflicting over 50,000 casualties, making it the bloodiest single battle of the war. The loss there greatly spoiled the hopes of the Confederate States of America to become an independent nation. Among the men who left their homes and communities to fight were those from Long Island, primarily in the 12th, 67th, and 119th New York Infantry regiments. This monument on Culp's Hill was dedicated in 1888 to the 67th New York Infantry Regiment, also known as the 1st Long Island Volunteers. The 67th New York was involved in over 20 engagements during the Civil War, including the Battle of Gettysburg. At the Battle of Gettysburg, the 67th Regiment had been reduced to just 363 soldiers. On July 3, 1863, they defended this spot, then quickly marched to help stop a major Confederate attack aimed at Union artillery. This attack, Pickett's Charge, was a disaster for the Confederacy, helping seal their defeat in Pennsylvania and forcing General Robert E. Lee to retreat. After Gettysburg, the 67th Regiment continued to serve by chasing General Lee's army as it retreated through Maryland and across the Potomac River to relative safety in Virginia. They also guarded important areas along the Rappahannock River and took part in later campaigns such as Mine Run. Sometime after Gettysburg, a Long Island soldier wrote that Union infantry had marched over 300 miles in 10 days. One Union foot soldier even joked that they had outwalked Confederate cavalry, whose horses were worn down while infantry kept moving. Having fought in 17 major battles, when the 1st Long Island Regiment returned home near the end of its service, only about 140 men remained out of the original 1,200.
67th New York was actually, it says it's also known as the 1st Long Island. It was basically because it was recruited mostly from Brooklyn, okay, the city of Brooklyn, because at that time, Brooklyn was Long Island. I mean, it still is Long Island, but it was considered part of Long Island. It was actually like the center of Long Island community. You'll find that the Long Island Historical Society was actually based out of Brooklyn. And actually, if you look on the Brooklyn Historical Society's building in Brooklyn, it still says Long Island Historical Society. So it would not be unusual for a regiment from Brooklyn to be called the Long Island, 1st Long Island, or Long Island Brigade, or something to that effect.
One of the very few infantry companies raised in Queens County, Company H of the 119th New York Infantry, was organized by lawyer Benjamin Willis of Roslyn. Willis held recruiting rallies in Baldwin, Freeport, Hempstead, Roslyn, and the Rockaways in August 1862. Those who responded ranged from a painter's assistant to a farm laborer.
9 of the 10 companies of the 119th New York were raised in New York City, in Manhattan, what we know as Manhattan today. Their colonel was Elias Peisner. He was a German immigrant, and he was a professor at Union College in Schenectady. He formed this regiment mainly by a lot of German immigrants. There were also Irish and other, but right here in Hempstead and North Hempstead areas, it was Company H was formed. And Company H was organized by Captain Benjamin Albertson Willis. Willis was a lawyer from Roslyn and a former student of Elias Peisner. He went to Union College. And he raised a company of 100 men and were inducted into the United States Army in New York City and were part of it.
The first major battle for the 119th was in May 1863 in Chancellorsville, Virginia, where the regiment was one of those caught off guard when Confederate General Stonewall Jackson led a sudden attack. The 119th was engaged on the first 2 days of Gettysburg, with Lieutenant Colonel Edward F. Lloyd taking over command after Colonel John T. Lockman was wounded on July 1st.
The time at Gettysburg, actually 119th was part of the 11th Corps. It was in the 3rd Division. And July 1st, they were marching up Emmitsburg Road, right behind the 1st Corps. But at the same time, General Ewell was coming down from Carlisle south. He was heading south and basically sent O.O. Howard, that was the Corps commander of the 11th Corps, sent his corps north of Gettysburg. And the 119th was part of the 3rd Division, basically holding the line as Ewell's Confederate division was coming south. One of the highlights of the 119th's first day at Gettysburg would have been to support Captain Dilger's battery. Captain Dilger had a battery of artillery. Now they did the same thing at Chancellorsville as well 2 months earlier to support Dilger's battery, trying to fend off Confederate attacks. So as the Confederates are coming down, there was a retreat. In support of Dilger's battery, they still were moving back. They retreated through town, firing at Confederates in the streets as they were leaving, and heading basically up to Cemetery Ridge, towards the cemetery in Gettysburg. They fortified that area, and luckily, General Ewell, ignoring kind of hard to understand orders from General Lee, did not attack Cemetery Hill that evening, and basically allowed the 119th and other regiments to basically dig in on Cemetery Hill and to protect that defensive vantage point.
The men of the 12th New York Infantry were recruited principally in New York City, Buffalo, and the Long Island village of Patchogue in Suffolk County. At Gettysburg, the 12th New York Infantry was present with 2 companies, D and E, serving as provost guard at the 5th Corps headquarters, rather than in main fighting lines, meaning they had minimal direct combat. This castle on Little Round Top is the largest regimental monument on the Gettysburg battlefield. It stands 44 feet high and 12 feet wide, dimensions that represent the 2 regiments of the 44th and 12th New York Infantries. Among the over 24 Patchogue men who served in Company D during the Battle of Gettysburg included Theodore F. Beale, Charles Jennings, and P.B. Miller, all of whom enlisted in the Long Island Village. The severity of the battle became even more meaningful months later in November 1863, when President Abraham Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address on the same ground, honoring the soldiers who fought there and stating that the Union had to remain dedicated to the great task remaining before us.